Okay guys, so we're back. Day 3, still working on buttons a little bit, but hopefully we'll move on to the input section next, or like a drop-down select or something like that. I've given myself about 15 minutes for this. So yeah, if we hop over to Figma, we'll start the timer and then we'll get started. So right, this is where we left off. I've done a little bit of tidying up since, and everything's sort of nicely organized. But what I need to do is I'm going to drag the base frame out. I'm going to create a component out of it. Now I've got a master component. I'll create a copy of it, and I'm going to bring that back into the button that we've got. I'm just going to sort that to the bottom. Right, so now that's out of the way, I'll be able to just sort these constraints. The constraints won't defeat me today, that's for sure. Here we are, perfect. So everything's as it needs to be. By taking the frame out, it's going to allow us to sort of colorize things as much or as little as we want, really. And then it will have an updated ripple effect across all of the instances of it, as you probably already know at this point. Right, so that's good. We need to handle the different button states. So this one's going to be a little bit fiddly, but what we'll do is we'll select in the master button, we're going to add a few variants. So this would be, what would that be? Let's say it's hover, and create another one. So just Command D. This would be pressed, and again we'll do disabled. Right, so that gives us sort of what we need. I'm just going to move this out of the way. Right, everything's looking the same obviously, but for default, let's go to button face, and we're just going to turn off some of the effects that are going on. So it's probably going to be like the outer glow is the main thing that will change for this state. And then for the hover effect, we'll keep that as it is. For the pressed, it looks like the button face itself dims a bit. So obviously we need to turn off the outer glow for this as well. So if we select, you never know if you might want to use it in the future. So you can sort of just turn it off using the little icon there. And then I'm going to dim this to about 70%. And that's the press state for now. Try not to be too precious at this point. Just trying to make up for lost time, really. I mean, the last videos were ridiculous. They were like 40 minutes long and we were just iterating and refining. But now all that's out of the way, that gives us sort of room to breathe, really. And for the disabled stuff on the button face itself, let's drop that down to something like this. So 50, and we can drop the down to 50 as well. I might end up darkening this instead of lowering the opacity, because sometimes you can get like weird like sort of overlaps and it doesn't always look great. But I think for now, this is kind of exactly what we need to progress. Right, so we've got disabled. The next thing I want to do is I just want to add a text option here. So this will be button text, and the default value will be just default for now. And you'll notice this little icon not used within the component, and that's because I just need to go through, select all of the references to the text here, and then I need to go to appearance, oh no, not appearance, up to here, and then set that as the variable reference. Right, so everything should be sort of like working as I'd expect it to. Let's take a look at that guy. Right, we've got our button. Let's bring that out. You can sort of see we've got 4 little icons now, or 4 instances. Now we can go through, we can sort of work with those. And then for each one, we can just change the text. So that would be default or disabled. And that's going to change for us directly on the component. So really useful way of editing text in a sort of an isolated way. You know, this area here will eventually grow, we'll have more properties, and we'll be able to sort of manage these things. So for example, if you wanted to have another property, so this could be size equals large. If we add that, now we have a little size variant, and then we have large, and then later on we can create smaller versions of it, so small or medium or whatever it may be. But it's quite nice that with these properties you're able to sort of stack different options really, which makes the components really powerful. And I'll just do the same here as well. One more time, should probably have copy and pasted it, but never mind. Large, cool. So now everything in any of these states is now going to have this option available. If, for example, you left the option out for disabled like this, then you're not going to have the option there. You'll have the large option, but you won't have any others. But we'll just undo that because we do want to be able to control that. Right, nice. That's doing exactly what we want it to do now. So relatively straightforward with that. So I just wanted to talk quickly about like the previous videos that I did. Obviously they just took ages. There were, I think, 30 minutes and then like a 40-minute one where I sort of did a little recap and like a little commenting sort of session and stuff like that. That stuff's really useful to do, even though it did take a little bit longer. And, the longer format is sort of hard to, I guess, give that amount of time to sit down and, go through it properly. But throughout those videos, we did other things as well that have kind of made this process a little bit easier. So, the whole sort of constraints thing, that was a slog at the start, but now we're built for the future and everything is reusable. So it was kind of like a little bit of a pain, but working through it and sort of building it with a sort of a modular system that you can control with these master components is like a proper solid way of working. And I personally sort of feel like, based on my experience, by doing it that way, you sort of look after yourself for the future. Say, for example, you were doing this for a client and they said, oh, I don't like the green button or the green color or something like that. Had you have not used the components, sort of feature and, this sort of way of building things, modularly for sort of like reusing in the future, you'd have to go through every single button and update it. And if it's a really sort of complicated button style like this, more so than just like a nice rounded sort of pill-shaped button, then, that can be really tedious. But if ever in the future I needed to update this, then I'm only updating the values once in their respective areas. And it just really helps you out in the future. So something to think about, sort of build once and kind of protect yourself and the amount of work that you'll have to do in the future. But enough said about that. Let's jump back into Figma. Right, so everything's looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. The button state went in well. I'm going to take a look at this option. So, right, so this is a drop-down select button. And what are we going to do? So we'll probably use this as the base frame. This was one of the reasons why I broke it out from the main sort of button style. So I'm going to create a copy of that and bring some text in. Just paste that over the top for now. just let it do what it needs to do. That's all fine. Let's grab the base frame that we created, right click both, and I'm going to frame them so they become their own thing. Drop down select. Let's call it that for now. Happy with that. Okay, and this needs to left and right and top and bottom. In theory, that should work as expected, which is nice. So looking at the concept here, I'm going to sort of eyeball things for now, but probably once we've got the main setup sorted, we're going to look at sort of using tokens and styles and stuff like that to sort of solidify a lot of the values that are set, you know, to do with like padding and margins and, you know, text formatting and stuff like that. That'll probably be like the next day or just some time in the near future. Okay, so that's fine. So as you could already see, like how quickly, you know, these elements can sort of be built once you've kind of captured the main component and it's sort of set up nicely. So half pixels here. The half pixels are generally fine, but I have noticed, you know, there's sometimes issues with when you export, even if you sort of snap the position so it isn't like over, you know, half a pixel or whatever it is, you can get like 1 pixel added to your exports, and I'll show you how to fix that when we get to the exporting part of the process. I'm just going to quickly create this ramp. And it pinches in the middle, so I'll just bring these, let's do it 52 and 48, see what that does. That's fine. It's relatively soft, isn't it? Which should be fine for what we need. It sort of looks like it's in a glow to me more than a stroke. So let's actually not a drop shadow. There we are, in a shadow. Bring this down. And then we're gonna, yeah, sort that out. Right, so that's the drop down button itself. So this would be like a secondary type of button style. We've got a primary style here, and then we've got secondary ones. And then just quickly with the arrow itself, relatively straightforward in this case. And once you've got your foundation for, you know, icons and stuff like that, you can come back to them and tweak them at any point. You know, it doesn't have to be this sort of like dry, you know, you could really sort of chip away at it if you wanted to. So let's flatten these, and then we'll do the gradient. Cool, that's looking nice. And again, I think that's a like an inner shadow or something. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to paste it. That should have come over. Yeah, it did. I'm going to ramp that up a little bit. There we go. It's looking quite nice. Pop that on there. Yeah, cool. That's cool. Right, so this section here is actually something that I reuse a few times for tooltips as well. So again, we're going to be building this once and we're going to be using it in a few other places. And that's just going to help with like, you know, cleaner implementation as well if we wanted to. You know, the fewer components and assets you have to sort of like manage, like the easier it is going to be to, you know, make changes in the future really. Okay, so this looks like it's got a little cheeky bevel on it, which is going to be a bit tricky to do. But for now, because it's so small, I'm going to leave it, and then we'll probably pick it up tomorrow. And there's a little ridge, isn't there? So just increasing that ridge. We need to sort them out, so put that behind. Remove the fill for that one, and there we are, we've got a ridge. Now, on the fill for this one, we've got a nice flat color with the, that's our time. Okay, right, we'll carry on for a few seconds. I'll just finish this up. But yeah, we've got an inner shadow, and we're just gonna increase the spread, get something relatively close. Right, that's looking pretty good. And same again, we'll just drag these out. Something like this. And eventually I'll put these into like a little auto layout or something like that. And it'll all sort of be nice and tidy. Probably something that we'll do tomorrow, to be honest. But that's looking good. So it seems like this is like secondary text. We'll need to add another color to this. So we can put a note for that actually. And sampling, well not sampling, but copying the ropey settings here. I'm just going to quickly do a check mark. Duplicate that. And this probably feels like a little bit chunky actually, but so if I reduce that back to 4, 3, 9, there we go. And I'm just going to turn it around. Let's flatten it for now. In fact, let's leave it like that because I'll probably tidy it up later. And let's do some gradient work and then we'll probably finish up. And lighter at the top. Actually, we will need to yeah, we will need to flatten these. So if we join them up, that should do. And then there we go. So a little bit chunkier, probably not as obviously a check mark, or maybe it's a little bit more obvious. We're going to leave that there for now, I reckon. But yeah, we've covered quite a few things. We made up some ground, I reckon. We've got our different states, which are handled with these different options. And then we've got our drop down and, or at least the initial build for these. And then we need to do a little cleanup pass like we did with this. But yeah, that's looking cool. Right, so a few things just quickly before we finish up with this. So let's do tidy up, sizing, and add auto layout to the list. Cool. Set up default white. Color style. And anything else? Maybe a little drop shadow. Cool. And anything else we can sort out tomorrow, I guess, you know, as we've been doing before. Yeah, I think that's yeah, that makes sense. So that's it basically. We've managed to, you know, cover a few things which, yeah, I think yeah, hopefully we've learned something. And hopefully we can sort of see as like the more we sort of like stack these blocks, we'll eventually get, you know, that kit that we're sort of like shooting for. And yeah, I think that's the yeah, the thing to just sort of be thinking about with everything you do really, which is like, how can I reuse this in the most sort of like useful and logical way, you know, to sort of like like I mentioned earlier on, like protect yourself in the future, so you're not having to go through everything and update everything manually, you know, utilizing components and, you know, sort of tokens and stuff like that. Definitely like time savers, and they're there to be utilized, and we're going to be using tokens especially a lot more as we go forward in the other videos. So if you're, you know, interested in learning more about that, give the video a like. Obviously subscribe if you haven't before. Jump down into the comments and let me know what you thought about the video, and can't wait to see you soon. Catch you later, guys.